Well, welcome to Beyond Battlecreek. I'm Jeff Henry, and it has been a minute since we have done a podcast, and I'm super excited to be back in the studio. Glad all the returners, thanks for jumping back in, listening to the pod, and for all the new subscribers. I'm so glad that you're here as we help connect you between Sundays here at Battlecreek Church. I am joined today by my new friend, Josh Welchel.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, Josh, you were one of our newer campus pastors here at the Broken Arrow campus, and so just a little clap. Welcome. Glad to have you on the team, man. Absolutely.
Thanks. No, we're excited to be here. It's hard to believe it's been 6 months. We just celebrated 6 months being here in Broken Arrow, and it feels in some ways like it was just yesterday that we moved.
For sure.
And in other days, it feels like, man, we've been here years, and it just feels comfortable. And like, man, this is where we've been. So we're excited.
You jumped right in. Like, I want to say a few weeks after you got here, you preached, and you were like, right. And if you're watching online, in the campus pastors preach, you don't get any other campus, you get you. And so like for all the thousands of viewers, I mean, is that any pressure for you? Like, the first time they see you, you're up there preaching the word.
So to be honest, when I was first talking with Battlecreek, I had said, I would love to teach. And I really, in my mind, I thought this is something that would be, years down the road, maybe,
right.
And so, and they said, probably, get settled in, give us a year, maybe we'll find some time. And literally, like you said, I got here and it was like, hey, in 2 weeks, you're up. And man, the anxiety of that. But man, it's such a privilege, and I'm so grateful that we have a senior pastor that's willing to share the stage and to allow different voices to communicate God's truth. And
absolutely
honored to be able to. I know we crafted that together as campus pastors, that sermon specifically, and so it was fun to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's good. Shout out to Pastor Alex. What a great communicator, and we're glad to preach the word at our campuses. But you slayed it, by the way. Awesome job your first time up, and every time you get up swinging. We were home one Sunday. You and I texted about this, and I said, hey, man, we just watched you and did an awesome job. And we were on COVID protocol, which seems to be everybody's about there. Seth's shaking his head. Seth's our producer here, and he's been pretty good. He's been protected, but we're so glad to have you at Battlecreek Church. Thanks. You are an awesome fit to our campus pastor team and for the Broken Arrow campus. So this is the first time that maybe people have got a chance to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Yeah, so my wife, Sarah, and I, we've been married 7 years, coming up on 8 this year, and we've had a lot of fun, kind of interesting story. We actually met on an airplane, and so that was
next to each other, like
almost. Yeah, we were actually. I spotted her in the terminal. I thought she's pretty attractive, and curious what her story is. And when we boarded the plane, I ended up sitting across the aisle from her and her mom, and so I started talking and having some conversation, and invited her to church with me that week, and she came and kind of hit it off from there. And so that's how we met, and which actually interesting. I read an article today that was talking about the number of people that meet spouses and have relationships through airplanes. And so
that's awesome.
I know a lot of people aren't flying right now, but it might be worth it.
So listen, if you're looking for a spouse,
it might be a good option.
Get those frequent flyer miles, right? Add it up, get you some credit card purchases up there, and just fly across the country.
So yeah, we've been married 7 years, and we got to spend. I spent the last 10 years in Reno, Nevada, at a great church there, and we got to do a lot of ministry there, lots of close relationships. Her family is from kind of the Reno, Nevada area, and most of my family, I grew up in Las Vegas and have a lot of extended family in Orange County. And so we kind of from the West Coast, this is as far away from home as we've been in our time, not only together, but in life. And it's been a blast to be on this adventure together.
That's awesome. I mean, if there's any keen listeners out there, they're going to hear the country drawl that I have in my voice that you do not possess. So there's a stark difference.
But we did add y'all to our vocabulary this year.
Okay.
So that's now officially a thing for us.
All right. I'm going to tell a great story. So the other day, Josh and I are out on Route 66. We're having lunch with some other folks, and it's a grease diner, right? Like it's just a diner, right? And we know what a diner is here in our areas, and so Josh orders, and he orders a side that's like a healthier side. And so what do you have as a healthy side? And she said, "Hon, we fry everything here, so you can give you a salad." And he said, "All right, I'll take some vinaigrette." And that sweet waitress looked at you and she said, "Honey, we don't have vinaigrette here." We have ketchup and gravy and ranch.
And ranch. That's it.
That was it. and somebody noted, they said, hey, he's not from around here. And she said, I can tell. He's not. So that was welcome to Oklahoma. All right. If it ain't gravy, ranch, or ketchup, you're gonna miss out. But you had a substitute for that, right? Yeah, there was. What did you order to put on?
I think I got some salsa.
Some salsa.
Put on the side.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, little pico de gallo. That'll work on a salad for me.
That sweet lady, man, she was so funny. But man, that's awesome. So definitely West Coast, right? Met your wife out there, previous church. Like, I'm just curious. Our pastor's been talking recently about how do we know God's will for our life, and we all have different callings on us. And I'd just love for you to share a little bit about your call into ministry and what that looked like, and when did you feel like God was actually ushering you into not just serving him, but serving him vocationally?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I grew up in Las Vegas. My dad was actually a pastor at a large church there for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And so getting to see him in ministry, and I think in many ways growing up in a large church was it helped me fall in love with the church. To see the energy and the power that could happen when people gather together and come united around the gospel message was just so life-giving for me. And so growing up, I did internships at the church, lots of serving, and kind of my start really was in music. I love the drums, and so I started playing the drums in 7th grade. Jumped into our junior high team and our high school team, and then really through that kind of felt a stirring in high school towards worship, and just really felt like, man, if I can help people connect with God, what an honor and a privilege that would be in life. And so ended up going to college in Southern California at a Christian university, and with really the heart to be a worship pastor. And so got into worship leading, led at a church there, and then eventually moved to Reno once I graduated to be a part of the church I was at. And so for those 10 years, my role kind of adapted and changed, but it was mostly within the worship and creative arts realm. And so I would say really the call for me was in high school, and just seeing how God used the church. But I would say that call really was confirmed when I was in Reno, and kind of been part of my story. It was a few years into being on staff at the church that I realized, man, there's areas of my life that I just didn't feel like were biblical, that weren't living through the will that God had set for me. And so I went to our elder team, kind of said, hey, there's areas that I think I need to work on, and was actually released from ministry for a season. And so in that season, some 10 years ago almost, I think that's really where I got to see the heart of the church, being restorative and being looking to help people be healthy and be whole, and to walk beyond just the superficial Sunday morning, oh, things are good in my life, I sing some songs, to what does discipleship really look like? Yeah. And so I would say that was a big turning point for me. And honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever be in ministry again after that. I thought that might be the end. But there was a renewed passion for me at that moment to go, okay, if I was dealing with this in my life, how many other people are coming to church week in and week out and yet aren't really experiencing true freedom and experiencing God at a deep level? And so through going through that kind of restoration process, the church brought me back on staff. And I would say that was kind of the solidifying moment of, this is what I want to do. I want to help people find freedom and discover their purpose, which is two of our kind of core values within our mission. So
that's awesome. I mean, so it sounds like you grew up in the church, like you were there as just a pastor's kid, but you didn't hate it. You loved to serve it. You started playing in church. You went to work at a church. You took a break, and sometimes, breaks allow us, time away allows us to see things that we really love about it. And now you're back. You mentioned the church so many times just right now describing it. And I can really tell that you do love the local body, that you love church. As you think about church here at Battlecreek, like, what do you love about Sundays? What is it about gathering together at 9 and 11 that just really, that you look forward to every time you get together with people?
Yeah, I think there's so many aspects of Sunday that I love. I love the energy of coming together. There's just and I know it's been so challenging in COVID. I know that there's been people who have had to really wrestle with, how do we keep our families safe? But through this experience, I've learned you can't beat coming together and gathering as a body. There's something that happens when you're with people,
right.
And truth sinks in a different way. There's encouragement that happens at a deeper level. And so being that worship was a huge part of my beginning in ministry, I would say worship is one of the things I look most forward to. And we have, and not just at our Broken Arrow campus, but at all of our campuses, we have such incredible worship pastors.
Yes, we do.
And leaders.
Come on.
And I love that is something that we're passionate about here, giving God praise and glory through song. And so I love that aspect of corporate worship. I love that we get to be in the same room hearing God's word together and being able to engage that way. But man, I even love just the moments in the hallways between services, those getting to see friendly faces, getting to see new people come in for the very first time.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a great moment, seeing people serve and being able to use the giftings that God has given them brings such great joy to my heart. And so,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday is by far my favorite day of the week.
Gosh, I love Sundays.
Yeah.
Like it is, I'll wake up excited about it. No matter what time I go to bed on Saturday night. Like I wake up jacked just to be with our people, right?
Do you have a hard time sleeping on Saturday night?
No, I don't have a hard time sleeping anytime, to be honest with you.
Saturday night, I get excited, and it's sometimes hard for me to go to bed. I'm like,
I never go to bed early for sure. Like I take a great nap on Sundays, but I so look forward to seeing our people because they become family. And I'm sure even now, as you've been here 6 months, you start to see the people that you just love to be around, that encourage you, delight, that you get to spend time between Sundays with throughout the week. You do life with them, and man, and you're right. I'm spot on. I mean, just for the record, I mean, you said worship and the people, but I mean, for me, it's got to be the preaching. Okay. Yeah. So pastor, thanks for listening. It's got to be preaching. It's the number one thing I look forward to every week. But no, man, I think about for us at our Broken Arrow campus, I've been here almost 2 years. We've been without a campus pastor for a while. In fact, I think they were without about a year and a half without a campus pastor. And, to be fair, we had a couple of people that we thought were the guy brought in, and God made it very clear that he had better plans, and we were looking for God's best. And you were God's best, right? and not from a likely place to look, like Reno, Nevada, or I would say Nevada, from being from Oklahoma, is not like the budding metropolis of our connections. But I'm just so curious, and I'm sure the listeners are too. How did you get to Battlecreek from Reno, right?
Yeah.
Tell us how God worked in that.
Yeah. We so I'd say it was a couple of years ago that Sarah and I really began praying and seeking and going, okay, God, what does ministry look like for us in this next season? And I'd been in creative arts and worship ministry for 10 years at that point, but really felt like maybe there is something else that God's calling us into.
Sure.
And so we began praying and seeking, and we thought maybe it would be in Reno, just in a different capacity. And as we prayed, we really felt like God said, no, it's not here. And so we really just kind of open-handedly said, okay, God, we'll keep serving here faithfully as long as you have us, and we'll just see what happens. And we'll start having conversations with ministry contacts. And so I had called a couple of people, one of them being one of my best friends, who's actually a senior pastor here at another church. His name's Justin. And so I had called Justin and kind of shared with him, man, here's where we're at. And I don't really know what this next season is going to look like. And he had asked me, so, well, what would your dream job be? And I was like, truthfully, I don't know. I said, but if I had to really think through, and if you had to nail me to the wall on something, I'd probably say like a campus pastor role of some sort. But I said, I think I'd really want to be at like the broadcast location. And there's just something about kind of the large energy of a church that, from growing up in a large church, that I love.
Right.
And I think that there's, a unique tension here at this campus, being that our senior pastor, Alex, is here just about every week. And then I'm here. And so there's kind of a weird dynamic that has to get managed and navigated with some finesse.
Sure.
And I said, that actually excites me. That's something that I think would be really cool at a broadcast campus. And so he ended up meeting the next day. He was having lunch with Kurt Von Eschen,
Oh,
And Kurt is part of our executive team here. And the connection there for me was Kurt was actually the former worship pastor at the church that I was at in Reno. And so we had some connection, but I didn't know that that the church was looking for a campus pastor at the time. And so Justin and Kurt went to lunch, and Kurt said, man, we've been struggling to find a campus pastor for our broadcast location. And Justin just started laughing, and he was like, man, have you talked with Josh? Because we literally had a conversation yesterday. And so Kurt called me up, and as we started talking, and as I started hearing the vision and the heartbeat of Battlecreek Church, man, we just fell in love.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is, after years of really praying and seeking, this is what God is calling us into.
That's cool. How awesome is that, right? Like, that was not a happenstance that Kurt was having lunch with that guy, that you called him at the right time. And as we think about those things, like, that was God orchestrating a major move in your life through some really, really cool events. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
You look back on God making the opportunity known to you. You look back at how he's worked in your life, and you can identify all of these road marks, right? All these landmarks, so to speak, of like, man, God confirmed it. And these things, it wasn't happenstance, right? It's just ironic that Kurt had a meal with that guy. It was all God's perfect timing. And how cool is that? And so, man, shout out to Kurt for being willing to listen to the Lord and have lunch at the right time. So if you listen to this, you want to know God's will, go to lunch with somebody, right? They'll open it up. But that's good. So, man, Kurt, if this goes well, Kurt's going to get all the praise. But if this goes south, that's indigestion, right? He didn't hear the Lord right. No. Recently, our pastor was talking about, how do you know God's will for your life, right? Yeah. And I think that's a question we all ask at various times in our life. And somebody right now is listening to this podcast asking the same question. And Pastor talked about that there's three things that line up: God's principles, his precepts, and wisdom.
Yeah.
And for you, as you think back to this major decision in your life, I mean, you're talking about somewhere for 10 years in a career that was different. You have a family now that you and your wife are thinking like, you're not just responsible for you. There's a lot weighing on that. How did those three things line up for you?
Yeah, well, certainly as we started looking and exploring what it would be to come to Battlecreek, we invited a lot of people into that conversation.
Sure.
Had some wise people that are full of godly wisdom, that we said, hey, these are the things that we're seeing. Can you look? Can you go through the website? Can you listen to the sermons and discern with us? And I think God's will, when those things line up, is clear, but I think it becomes easier to discern that in community. And so that was one of the first things we did, was bring community into it. And then, looking at scripture and going, okay, man, what are the things that God has wired within us that we're passionate about? And, we know that obviously, scripture speaks a lot about living generously, about sharing the gospel, about taking care of those who are less fortunate. And we saw all of those things happening here at Battlecreek. We were like, okay, this is a church that is following after the word of God. And then obviously God's principles, sowing and reaping. And, as we went through each of those steps and each of those processes, we found that they aligned in such a way that we were very comfortable. And certainly it wasn't like thus saith the Lord, voice from on high. We didn't have anything like that. But as we looked at the way that everything lined up, we said, this would be a wise decision. Yeah. We believe that if we accept this role, that God would bless it. And God has. It's been, certainly there's been challenges. Doesn't mean that it's easy. It's hard to be far away from family, and it's hard to have relationships with those that you love so deeply now have a distance between you. Mm-hmm. But we also know that God's a faithful God, and he's with us in this. And
absolutely,
so it's been good.
Man, what an amazing story. I'm so thankful to hear that in this long form, right? Not just in a hallway conversation. And, I'm just thinking about, like, we can read the precepts and we know the principles, but wisdom is the hardest part of that equation, and figuring out what does God want for us. And the pastor talked about recently that you get wisdom. One, James says, you ask for it, I'll give it. So God gives you through the Holy Spirit wisdom. You get it by reading his word and by hearing the voice of the Father. But I believe that wisdom comes from us trusting the Lord and God rewarding us with that obedience. And that's
Yeah.
wisdom, right? It's through our circumstances. And so, there's going to be a day, and maybe even now, where people come to you and say, hey, Josh, what's the wisdom in this? And because you took that step of faith, that God is going to honor that by keeping you right there to be that wisdom for someone else. And so that's so cool to hear. We're so glad to have you here at our Broken Arrow campus. I'm just curious, like, so far, it's been 6 months, right?
Yeah.
How have you seen God working? What's some things that you're just super excited about?
Man, I'm excited for our staff and our team. I think this 2020 was a very different way of doing ministry.
For sure.
So, where we were used to doing certain things, I have loved getting to see the innovation and the creativity of our staff and our volunteers, our dream teamers that are coming in, showing up week in and week out, and serving in all sorts of different forms. It's forced us to think differently, and so I've really enjoyed that process. I've loved seeing here the number of people that are taking steps in their faith journey. I mean, we talk about helping people advance in their journey with Christ. And I love that we have people walking through our doors who have really heard nothing of the gospel.
Sure.
And then we have people coming through our doors who have been wounded at a church in the past. And then we have people coming in who maybe they grew up in a church, but they've been distant for a season.
Yeah.
And so you got people coming in with all different walks of life, having had all sorts of different experiences, and yet they're taking steps with where they're at, and seeing people that are trusting God in the arena of their finances for the very first time. Seeing people, even with our Christmas offering this year, for the first time say, okay, I'm gonna give beyond what's comfortable because I believe that God's going to show up in that. Seeing people get plugged into community groups for the very first time. We've seen a ton of that in the last couple of weeks. And then even stories of people walking in who, this woman that I can think of, had a conversation with her. She came, heard the sermon, received Christ. 2 weeks later, she came back, is baptized, and then the next week shows up and she's got a whole family with her.
Wow.
And then
That's awesome.
It's been months later now. She's gone through advanced track. She's now plugging into serving. I saw her in the hallway the other week. She had like 6 different family groups with her. I mean, she's just coming in, and from that one moment, that one encounter with Christ has just blown up her world in the best possible way.
That's cool.
And it's seeing those stories of life change, of people taking the steps that just really fires me up. And I'm just so excited to see that here.
That's really cool. Man, it fires me up just to hear that, about what God is doing here at the Broken Arrow campus. I'm curious, so in the most positive way possible, what is something that's been the most surprising thing about Battlecreek or being here in the Tulsa area to you?
Yeah, I think what we've been surprised with is just how many amazing restaurants there are here.
Come on, speaking my language right there.
We love all the different food places that we've been able to try. And of course, food is always better with people. And
That's right.
So being able to go out with people and experience restaurants. And we've loved that. There's some great chains here, but we love just how many individual restaurants there are, kind of mom and pop type of shops that are here and doing their thing. And so we've enjoyed that. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Whenever you move to a new city, there's opportunity to do new things, right?
Yeah.
Has there been like a new routine or a new habit that you guys have started that's different from when you were out west?
Yeah. I would say one of the things that's been different for us is we've been getting out a lot more, and part of that comes from, the last number of years, both of us have been in schooling, doing master's programs. We both at one point were in master's programs at the same time, which was a horrible idea. And so we've not had a lot of time to kind of be out and about. And so we've enjoyed just going for walks. And there's so many ponds here, getting to walk around ponds, the gathering place. I mean, we love going down there and just walking around and getting to experience the beauty of God's nature. There's a lot more green here. Obviously not right now at this very moment. There's a lot of yellow and dead, but up in Reno, it's all dirt. You got some pine trees and some trees here and there, but a lot of dirt. And so it's been fun to see all the grass and color. And we've loved that.
That's cool. And during the day, you're a campus pastor, and you shepherd people, and you minister, and you do those things. But you're a person. You're a dude the rest of the week. So I'm just like, what are you curious about right now in life? Like, what are you learning? What are you interested in?
Yeah, I would say a couple things that have been of interest to me recently. One of them has been fitness.
Okay.
So part of my story. Back in high school and leading into college, I dealt with depression and anxiety at a pretty high level. And so I've always tried to figure out ways to be healthy. And but I would say since being here, and especially coming out of a year of lockdown, it kind of threw a lot of routines and rhythms off, and then moving to a new place, don't have a gym here anymore. And so trying to figure out, well, what does it look like to be healthy and to sustain? And I believe God wants us to live in health. And so that's been something I've been trying to do a lot of research of, how do you work out at home? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And, using different apps and different resistance bands and things.
That's
cool.
So,
that's been fun, and getting to learn a lot on that. And I'd say even just from a church culture standpoint, getting to learn a little bit more about kind of the history of church in this area of the country. I mean, this is, I would say, the upper end, but it's still considered the Bible Belt.
Sure.
And so I came from a very unchurched area to now a very churched area. And so there's a lot of just cultural things that I'd say are of interest to me that I'm kind of diving into and getting to hear stories and what people have experienced. So that's been a lot of fun.
That's cool. I'd love for our listeners just to remember you and your leadership of our campus, our broadcast campus, our largest campus. All the other campuses add up to be the size of Broken Arrow. It's a massive undertaking. And so if you're listening to this podcast, I would really encourage you to pray for Josh as he leads this campus and to really lift him up. And so, Josh, what are some things that we can join you in praying for?
Yeah, man, I would say praying for our staff would be a huge thing. I know we have a lot of staff here at our Broken Arrow
Great
campus.
staff, by the way.
Great staff.
Phenomenal staff.
Yes, and they make my job in many ways easy, and I love getting to work alongside of them. But praying for health and for vision and direction. I think one of the things that over the past year that we're kind of looking at now is, if we emerge from 2020 and the church remains exactly the same as it was in 2019, I think we've missed what God is doing. And so
that's good.
I'm looking into this new year, and I would say one of the ways we can be praying together is, how do we revamp? What is it that God is wanting us to do as a church? Obviously, the core things haven't changed. We want to reach people.
Right.
We want to bring people into a relationship with Christ, but maybe some of the methods need to change a little bit. And so I would say prayer for that, prayer for even for our dream teamers. We've got a lot of great dream team members, but we've also had a lot of people who can't come back for one reason or another, and we've experienced some growth. And so trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we recruit new people, and how do we recruit new volunteers to join with the great team that we already have? So we could be praying for that, and I would say even just praying for favor in our community. We don't want to be a church that is just within the four walls of this building. We know that the church is obviously the body of Christ, the people. And so we want favor in our community to be able to go out and have those partnerships and be able to reach people in a way that's compelling and winsome and encouraging.
That's great, man. Thanks for sharing all those things, and I hope you, as a listener, will just join us in praying for you as the leader, but also for the campus. So thanks so much for sharing that. All right, we're gonna turn a corner here, Josh.
All
right. I'm curious about some things. All right, about you. If you were stranded on a desert island, who would you rather have with you, Pastor Alex or Mike Babb?
Oh man, I might answer differently depending on who's watching.
Yeah.
But
just answer from your heart. Listen to your heart.
Okay, so here's what I'd say. I think I'd take Mike Babb.
Okay.
And here's why. Man, one of the things I love about our senior pastor, Alex, he is an evangelist.
That's
I mean,
right.
God has gifted him in a way to win people, but I'm saved. And I need someone who can hunt. If I'm stranded on an island, I need someone who can help me survive. And Mike knows how to hunt.
That's true.
So I think I got to go with Mike.
I think that's a really good choice, by the way. All right, so we're the perfect place for imperfect people. We've asked every guest on this show this question, and now it's your turn. Give us an in-depth look at how imperfect you are.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. That was just a joke. That was just a joke question. All right, we are going to move it. You got nervous for a second.
I was trying to think, how do I answer
got
this?
really nervous. All right, lightning round, 10 questions. Pretty simple questions. You don't take long to answer, just whatever is off the top of your head. Don't overthink this, okay?
Okay.
Number 1, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yeah, okay. There was only one right answer.
Yeah,
that's good. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Okay.
Every day.
Is that because you used to live closer to the mountains?
So I loved the mountains when I lived there, but I've always been a beach person.
Okay.
And part of that is our family. My extended family lives in Orange County, and every summer our family tradition is going and doing actual tent camping on the beach.
Wow.
And so I love the beach. There's something about the waves breaking on the shore over and over that for me is just symbolic of God's grace and his mercy never ending. And so it's just, I connect with God at the beach, and I look at the mountains, I'm like, they're pretty, but
yeah,
I'll take the beach.
Man, you spiritualize the waves like a champ. I just think that makes a good nap. Just a good sound to take a nap. All right, Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Okay. All right.
Now I take that back. Can I do YouTube? YouTube.
This is your answer. You would go YouTube.
I would go YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of content out there.
It is, and I said Netflix probably because that's what I've used to watch movies most often. But if I only had one, I'd probably do YouTube because that's where most of that's where this podcast is.
Right. Yeah.
And so
it's on a lot of places, but definitely on YouTube for sure.
Yeah, YouTube.
Okay. Grilled or fried chicken?
Grilled.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sensed some hesitation there.
I do love good fried chicken.
Yeah.
But I would say more often than not, I'll take the slightly healthier option.
To be fair, you've been curious about fitness, and so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. What's worse, laundry or dishes?
Laundry.
Yeah.
Because dishes, you can knock them out. Laundry, you have to sit there and wait.
Yeah. I think washing dishes is sometimes therapeutic.
It is.
Warm water. I pop in a really good podcast like
Absolutely.
Beyond Battlecreek.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a quick story
moment.
in our household. So I actually fired my wife from dishes.
Oh.
In the first year of marriage.
That?
Yeah, apparently.
Wow.
And so she was washing dishes, and I'm a 1 on the Enneagram. I'm a perfectionist.
Okay.
And was like, it's not perfect. And so I finally just said, you know what, I'll do the dishes. I'll take over, I'll clean. And it really wasn't until about year 5 of marriage that I realized she may have conned me into that. She may have just exploited the fact that I'm a perfectionist and was like, I'm just going to wash half the dish and see if he eventually takes over. And so it worked. But yes, I do the dishes.
I mean, by far, I'm the better dishwasher packer. Like I can pack it like a champ.
Yeah, all those Tetris days.
Absolutely.
Coming back.
All right, here we go. Movie at home or movie at the theater?
Movie at home.
Okay.
Man, I love the comfy couch. And the recliner chairs, they're nice. But,
for sure.
But man, I love the couch. And then you've got endless snacks that are just there at your disposal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's definitely a lot cheaper. There is an experience at the movie theater.
Yeah,
there's one in Tulsa that you can like order food and they have a waiter come out. It's nice.
We've not been there yet.
Yeah, but I like home as well. All right, are you ebook or paper book?
Paper book.
Okay.
However, all of my Bible study I do through an app.
Okay.
And that way my highlights can translate to all my different devices. So
there you go.
Yeah.
I'm paper everything.
Paper everything.
But I love email more than everything else. So I live in the nuance. How about that? All right. What's comfort food for you?
Comfort food for me. This is going to sound weird, but honestly, chicken, rice, and vegetables.
Okay.
There comes a point where, especially when we're eating out, that I'll just look at Sarah and say, Sarah, I just want some chicken, rice, and vegetables. Like just something simple that is healthy, that sits good, and it's comfort for me.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the comfort food is Mexican restaurant, chicken, rice, and cheese. That's just my favorite. It's so good. Like, all right, last meal on earth. What are you getting? Jesus tells you when he's coming back.
Yeah, I'm not getting chicken, rice, and vegetables at that point. Last meal, I'm probably going to do a pizza of some sort.
Okay.
Yeah, probably with lots of meat.
Okay.
Yeah, carnivore pizza.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's good. Deserted island, food and water are provided. Okay. What are the 2 items that you're bringing?
Bible. I mean, I feel like
It's a solid pastor
it's
answer,
a good,
for
solid
sure.
pastor answer, but it's true.
Obviously, yeah.
And you got food, you've got water. Sarah, can I bring my spouse?
That didn't say you couldn't. So
Yeah.
there you go. Way
Yeah.
to think outside the box there. That's
I'm
good.
going to bring my Bible and Sarah.
Yeah. Gosh,
Otherwise, I'd be bored.
that's awesome. Well, Josh, it has been so good to have you on the pod. Listen, this is the first time probably of many we're going to have you on. You're a good podcast interview, and we mentioned earlier about how our leadership wanted to find God's best to lead this campus, and it took a while. And man, we're just thankful for you being here. And we really truly believe that you are God's best, God's chosen man to lead this campus. And we're so glad for your friendship and for here. And I hope everybody gets a chance to meet you on a Sunday. Just look for the good looking guy on stage. Not Pastor Alex, but the other good looking guy. So man, I love you. I look forward to seeing how God uses you to help others advance in their journey with Christ, to know God, to find freedom, to discover their purpose, and to make a difference. And I'm glad to be a brother here with you. So
thanks. It has been a privilege to get to serve with such an incredible campus pastor group, and I love it. It's been great.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Beyond Battlecreek. If you haven't yet, we'd love it if you subscribed to keep up to date with everything going on at Battlecreek Church. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Hey, we'll see you on Sunday.